Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Digital Fundraising Skills for Nonprofit Organization Success. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. A couple of quick housekeeping notes as we are about to get started. If you would like to get a copy of today's presentation sent directly to your phone, you can text right now the word digital to 51555. Again, text digital to 51555, and we will send this presentation directly to your phone. We're pleased to have all of you with us today. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers. We will be going about 50 minutes in presentation. We'll hold about 10 minutes at least for Q&A at the end of today's presentation. So do feel free to submit your questions directly into the chat, or there is also a Q&A icon at the top of your screen, so you can submit questions there as well, and we will get to as many of them as we can at the end of today's presentation. We will also be sending you an email with a link to the full recording of today's webinar along with the slides, so you'll be able to recap everything, share with a colleague or two. So if you miss anything, you can review anything and pass along today's fantastic insight to the rest of anyone who cannot make it today. Also, if you have any audio issues, sometimes calling in by phone might result in a slightly better experience for you. So feel free to use the three dots on the upper right corner of your screen, and you can switch to phone. We've got a great agenda today. We're going to be talking about fundraising efforts that grow evergreen philanthropy with Larry Johnson. We're going to be talking about digital skills to help your nonprofit thrive with Christina Knudsen from Food Rescue. And we are going to have our own Zanika Covington talking to us about how to achieve digital fundraising success. So thanks to everyone for joining us today. We are excited to have a great webinar lined up for you. Our first speaker, Larry Johnson, is the founder of the 8 Principles, an internationally recognized thought leader in fund development and philanthropy. Larry founded the 8 Principles in 2007 with the commitment to show charities how to create fundraising efforts which grow evergreen philanthropy. Larry believes that a sustainable, scalable philanthropic revenue stream is possible for any not-for-profit organization whose leadership truly desires it. The 8 Principles provides cutting-edge training and coaching products to nonprofit leaders both in the United States and abroad. Their mobile adaptive digital training platform, the Oracle League, is unique in the industry for accessibility, ease of use, and superior content. Larry is the author of the award-winning book, The 8 Principles of Sustainable Fundraising. He was selected Outstanding Development Executive by the Association of Fundraising Professionals in 2010. The Wall Street Business Network ranks him in the top 15 fundraising consultants in the United States. Larry also serves on numerous boards, including the Carter Center, the philanthropy of the 39th President of the United States. He is a member of the Purposeful Planning Institute, the nation's leading wealth management and philanthropic advisement group. With 3 decades of experience in charitable fundraising and philanthropy, Larry's career spans Fortune 100 project management, service to 4 colleges and universities as Chief Advancement Officer, and as a coach to hundreds of staff members, board members, and volunteers of nonprofit organizations. He is a graduate of Yale University. We're pleased to have Larry with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Chris, it's my pleasure. It is a pleasure to share with you some of the insights that I've gained through my work. However, the intro, that sounds pretty high-minded, and I just want to let everyone know I'm a pretty regular guy here. There are things I do outside of work, and one of the things I love to do is whitewater river rafting. What you're looking at is a trip down the middle fork of the Salmon that I take every other year. Class 4, Class 5 rapids. Me and my business partner do this. And since I moved out west, I also love going riding with my Harley, the Fat Boy. That picture's taken just before Chief Joseph Pass in Montana. And then my wife and I love horseback riding as well, and we go riding in the mountains, and those are the two horses there. Okay, down to business. First thing I want to say is I want your undivided attention. Why? Well, why do I want that? Well, here's why. And it's because although what I'm going to share with you is very simple, it is also very counterintuitive. And, let me give you a warning on that. And that is, if we get through this whole thing and you say to yourself, well, that was pretty obvious, I can almost guarantee you that you have missed something. And so I want you to really be focused on what it is I'm going to be saying, because it's very simple. It's not difficult to understand, but it's subtle, and often it can blow right by you. So let's focus it. So, take the smartphones, put those away, get off of or whatever it is you're doing on Facebook, and let's focus totally on the next 15 minutes on what I'm about to say. So, you want to be able to get it. You see the little girl there. You want to be able to get it. You don't want to be going, now, what did I got through this thing and like, yikes. So we're going to be focusing on digital tools today and how to make them really effective. And I think the first place that we need to make sure we understand is we need to know what these tools are not. We're going to be talking about what they are, but let's talk about what they're not. And, today, the breadth, power, and flexibility and accessibility of these tools is like never before. But they're not goals. They're not ends in and of themselves. I think too often people embrace these things as silver bullets. Well, if I just do this platform or push this thing or go into social media this way, I'm going to have instant success. No, they're not ends of themselves. They are what I said. They are tools, and every tool has its own particular use. I mean, that look pretty low tech there, but the high tech tools are no different. They all have a very specific purpose, and they fit into a broader context. And the usefulness of the usefulness of any tool is determined by the skill and knowledge of the user. So simply adopting the technology doesn't make you suddenly successful. You have to understand how the technology fits into your larger program. Let me give you a very simple example. You go out and you buy a dime store violin, a very inferior instrument, an inferior tool. You put it in the hands of a 5-year-old, and you're going to get a pretty predictable outcome. You put that very same inferior instrument in the hands of someone like Jascha Heifetz, and you have a totally different experience. That's what I'm talking about. The tool is very important, and the power of the tool is incredible. But in order to be able to unlock that, the right skill and the right mindset has to precede it. Everything that I'm going to be saying to you over the next couple of minutes is to position your organization to have a sustainable, scalable revenue stream. It's one thing to raise money once and done. You can do that almost without thinking about it. But what I'm going to be focusing on is how do you continue to raise money and more of it as time goes on to enhance your program, to grow your organization, to expand your impact. These are the things that today's digital tools, if they're used properly, can really create this. Unlike anything I've ever seen, that's the key. So first, of course, I want to say to you that being successful in fundraising is much, much more about how you're thinking than what you're doing. Before, there's sort of been leading up to that. So if you're thinking in the right way, where do you start? Well, most people are going to say that I start by doing stuff. I start by process. And you look down that track, and that's where most people go at that point. And you go, okay, let's get out and do stuff. We're going to go down this track. I'm going to say, no, that isn't where you start. The first thing you need to do is take a step back, and you take a step to paradigm. What is paradigm? Paradigm is the mental framework that shapes and defines your organization. Charities are like any other organization. They come in different sizes, different shapes, different purposes. All that together comprises your paradigm, and that will have an influence on the processes that you choose, the tools that you choose. But there's even one step behind that, and that step is that of principles. Believe it or not, there are some principles, some unchanging truths in philanthropy that govern philanthropy. I didn't invent these. They've always been out there. I think what I bring to the table is I put names on them. And I call these the 8 principles of sustainable fundraising. These are things that are going to operate whether you know about them or not. They're going to operate whether you agree with them or not. They're going to be there. And I can guarantee you that the organizations who do really well and have productive fundraising programs all follow these, even if they don't know they're following them. And if you're not following them, you're going to have headwinds in your fundraising, and you may not even know why. So let's take a look at just some of the, I think there are 4 or 5 very quickly we're going to take a look at that directly relate to using digital tools, and that which is our subject today. And the first one of those is, of course, Principle 1, donors are the drivers. Believe it or not, they're in the driver's seat. And donors drive this with their visions and values. They are in control. But here's what they don't drive it with. They don't drive it with their money. And that's because philanthropy is not about money. And so here again, the digital tools, the engagement tools of the digital tools can be especially powerful in drawing out the donor with their visions and values, what I call their value portfolio. You want to know what that is because ultimately it's not about money. Money's involved. Money's the result, not the goal. Let's look at another principle. Principle 4 is learn and plan. Guess what? Donors actually choose you. Yes, you heard that right. And they choose you because of their value portfolio. Right now, the donor base that will support you already exists. You don't have to create it. You have to learn what it is. You have to learn who's going to support you. And that's why when you see, things like the picture of the guy there sticking his binoculars out of the trees, let's scope out the prospects. It isn't like that at all. If you know your value portfolio, it's going to be a little bit more like this. It's going to be discovering the field that's out there. Once you know the lay of the land, it's going to be very, very easy to identify those people. And here again, this is where digital products, digital technology, and tools can be so effective. It's the whole concept of permission marketing that has been so popular in the for-profit arena and now is becoming more well-known in the nonprofit arena. So there, it's drawing people to you. It's not reaching out and grabbing them. It's allowing them to migrate to you. And that means that you have to understand exactly who it is, the kind of person, the values that are going to resonate. And there again, the digital tools are incredible at being able to discriminate that. Principle 6 is divide and grow. Simply treat different donors differently. So what are the differences you're looking for? Now, by the way, Principle 6 is the principle that allows your program to scale. Now, we've been talking about getting donors' attention at this point and creating that environment and understanding who they are. Now, in order for your program to scale, you can't treat all donors the same. So how do you discriminate between donors? Well, there are really 3 ways that you need to look very seriously as you look at your donor base. First of all, ability. Financial abilities do not come in all shape, in all the same size. There's high, medium, and low. That's one of the ways you need to look at your donor base. But another way you need to look at your donor base is in terms of affinity. This is value portfolio. How close are they to your organization by their own goals? Remember, it's about them. It's not about you. I can't stress that enough. Excuse me. Organizations really make a mistake when they think it's about them. They need to get over themselves. You need to understand that it's about the donor's affinity to you that makes that distinction. And then lastly is their life situation. Donors come in all ages. They're young, old, in between, married, single, making a lot of money, having a bankruptcy, having sickness, having good luck. I mean, all of these things contribute to what their situation is. And this also is a way that you need to understand how the donors are coming to you. And the more that you can do that, the more you will understand how to reach out to them in a way that is effective. And this is also where these tools are so incredible at understanding donor behavior so closely. I mean, it's almost scary. I mean, the online marketers figured this out 5 or 6 years ago, but the power of it is there for you as well if you'll understand that these are the criteria you need to be focusing on. As I said, doing this well allows your program to scale. Now, Principle 7 is renew and refresh. That simply means renew your current donors at the highest possible rate, even as you're refreshing your donors and adding new donors to your portfolio. Now, this principle is what gives you sustainability, because donors that come and go and who don't stay never give you capacity gifts. You always get gifts at a pretty low level. And you may be raising money, but you're not raising the kind of money in terms of sustainability over time that you would get if you focused on renewing donors instead of just getting them in the first day and then going away. And this is where your choice of digital tools is so critical again. And then finally, principle 8 is invest, integrate, and evaluate. Everything is moving. Everything is moving. Nothing remains the same. You must invest in your program. It's not a once and done thing. And here is also very important. You must integrate all your appeals so that they're all in alignment with each other. They're not contradicting or competing with each other. You see this all the time, whether it's in the old-fashioned world, the digital world. If you're appealing to the same group with different techniques and different approaches, you may find that they're working across purposes with each other. And then finally, you must never be satisfied with what you're doing. Technology is changing. You'll need to be evaluating your program efforts every single year. You can't just, oh yeah, we've got this one thing, it works, we're going to go with this. That isn't the way it works. Things are always changing. We're using a new version of this webinar software. It was kind of clunky for me to get started with it. There again, nothing really remains the same. So, but, with all the things, all the focus on technology, you see all the wheels and all the things there and everything that's there, you have to remember it's really not about the technology. It's really not about the technology. Fundamentally, these tools are only effective. They're only working if they're engaging people. That's the key. They must be engaging people. Because remember, people give to people. They don't give to causes. They don't give to organizations. They give to people. So in your use of the digital platforms, you need to be focused on the fact, how is this engaging my donor as a person? How is it drawing him or her closer to my organization? This should be the focus of any digital program. I want to give you a couple of free resources that you can reach, that you can do. If you want to find out just how leaky your fundraising bucket really is, how sustainable your program is, you can text the word bucket to that telephone number right there on the screen, 314-665-1767. And it takes about 3 minutes to do the quiz. You get your results right online. And if you'd like a one-page summary of all the 8 principles, you can email info@the8principles.com and simply put the word summary in the subject line. And you'll get it back. It's a PDF. You'll get it back by return email. So use these free resources, and I hope they provide value to you. I want to thank you for your time, and I know there's some other things coming up, and we'll see how it all fits together. Thank you very much.
Terrific, Larry. Fantastic insight. And again, thanks to all of you for joining. I know some of you have lots of questions, so please do continue to submit questions via the chat. You can also submit questions via the Q&A icon at the top of your screen. Again, if you do have any audio issues, suggest, switch to phone. We will be sending out a full version of the recorded webinar today, so if you missed anything, you can review, share with a colleague, catch up on all of it. You can also text digital to 51555 right now, and we will text you the full copy of today's presentation. Our next speaker is Christina Knudsen, who is from Food Rescue US. Christina is the Director of Development at Food Rescue US, a nonprofit committed to ending hunger in America by rescuing would-be wasted food and delivering it to those who are food insecure through a convenient mobile application. Since 2001, food rescuers at Food Rescue US have delivered over 15 million fresh and healthy meals to people who don't have enough to eat. That is amazing. So I'm super pleased to introduce Christina. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you. So what I am speaking about today are really just some general principles, lessons I've learned, and specific examples of how I've used digital skills with fundraising. As someone who has worked with several small to medium-sized nonprofits, I've been the sole fundraiser. I've been part of a small team. I've done marketing communications. If you are in this webinar today because you're juggling multiple responsibilities or wearing many hats, you're looking to make the best decisions for your organization, your choices on digital strategy is important because your time is limited and valuable. What I wanted to say here is actually really in sync with what Larry was saying earlier, which is always great, which is that technology is essential. I mean, it just is in this day and age. But really, as a fundraiser, your digital strategy just cannot replace everything you've already been doing as part of your fundraising approach. So your digital strategy should not be a get-quick-rich scheme. I think a lot of nonprofit organizations, particularly if you're smaller to mid-sized and you're thinking about your resources and your time, really get excited by the idea of the immediacy of digital opportunities. They're thinking about the idea of instant gratification, and I think a little bit quick to jump ship from long-time development best practices. But digital is designed to help but not replace other relationship building activities. So as a fundraiser, you need to think that your digital is important, complementary piece of the overall puzzle. So on to the next slide. When thinking about digital, sit down with your team and figure out the following things. So I can't stress enough, just as someone who works in fundraising with a nonprofit, the importance of proactive planning and strategizing versus being reactive. And I think, especially with digital, it's super easy to be reactive versus a proactive organization. So think about the specific skills, know-how, and tools you need and who needs them. If you're going to engage in a campaign or include digital tools in your strategy, who is responsible for them? How much time do they have? And do they know what they're doing? Do they have the tools? Does there need to be professional development, et cetera? And then thinking about what role does digital play in the overall fundraising strategy? So is it a piece of the puzzle? Are there separate digital activities during times of the year that stand on their own? Are they mirroring things that you're doing with your donors offline or in another capacity? And then really, I think an important question to ask, which I think about all the time, is what is the purpose of each digital activity? So is it to raise awareness? Is it to engage new volunteers? Is it to generate a gift? You need to really make sure that every single digital activity is actionable and focus your messaging. Don't leave your audience wondering what they're supposed to do. And a lack of clarity can result in no action. So they're not doing any of the things that you were hoping they were doing. Skills that I think you just want to make sure you're looking at your toolbox before kind of getting engaged with the strategy. So the first one is really you need to be proficient in gathering information about your audience, about your donors. This day and age, every digital tool that you're using offers some level of analytics or insight. Some of them are super sophisticated. Some of it is very basic, but please just don't ignore these tools. Take the time to figure out how to run reports, how to look into the data, and then how to tie it back into what you're doing so that you're constantly trying to get to know and learn the people in your world who are engaging with your organization. The basic use of common digital platforms and social media networks. So somebody in your organization needs to be proficient with the most common digital platforms, even if it's not the person responsible for fundraising. So identify what those things are: email marketing, social media, online giving, event management tools, and just make sure that someone clearly understands that they are responsible for knowing how to use it, making sure that you guys are just kind of up to date on the trends and are proficient in kind of basic usage. I would say that software to overcome an amateur digital presence is really important. So this day and age, there are so many tools that are designed for people who are not either a developer or a graphic designer. You can have for, an affordable rate, products that let your brand, your contemporary and compelling messaging shine through. So I would just say, in making a decision about what you're engaging with, take a look and say, is this customizable? Does this work for our brand? Does our voice come through in it? Or are there restrictions on the platform or the product itself that we don't love? So I would say just be authentic and think about how your digital presence works for your mission and your nonprofit. And then also knowing where to look. So, for example, and we experienced this with my organization, your Facebook audience, for example, might be very different than your major donors. So just understanding, again, who is engaging with you digitally on the different platforms, and how do they fit into your overall fundraising strategy. So, for example, just a short example, I'm doing a September campaign online. It is geared towards a largely younger audience because that is who we're finding is responding with us. So I'm not asking for $500. It's not the same messaging that we're using with different level of donors. So just think about what you're using and who is using it. So this is just a really quick overview of how our particular organization works. We are a national organization with local sites. We have a lot of volunteers. And so we have both national and local social media channels. So this is just a way that we think about how we are having true community and presence in each of our sites while still also maintaining a national brand. So we have lots of different ways that people can be involved with us. We have a proprietary mobile app that is how we facilitate our entire mission. We have online platform where people can make gifts. We have a ton of social media channels. We have in-person events that have a digital strategy. So think about how your organization works and the different pieces that you have. So this is an example that we just had our annual fundraiser. We had really awesome success. It was a wonderful event. And we really moved forward in our use of digital tools to boost interaction at every point during the event and afterwards. So you can see some of the images, some sample of our social. We used digital forms that were totally customizable beforehand to collect information about people coming so that we knew what our crowd was like. We sent out reminders on all our different channels. We had a lot of PR. We posted updates on our website. So we covered kind of all of the bases that we were doing. So on the next slide, the during, you can see a photo of our kind of donation station there. So we scheduled text messages to go to our audience coming into the event, welcoming them there, letting them know what was coming up during the event. So saying, hey, our executive director is speaking in 5 minutes, grab a drink and some food and, get ready for a really short video. So that worked for us because our event was loud, it was packed, we had, issues with volume. So using the text feature was really, really important because we were able to reach people versus just kind of yelling into a microphone repeatedly. So the style of our event is really upbeat and fun. So we didn't want to do anything that kind of changed that vibe. We wanted people to be there because they were excited about celebrating our mission. They were happy to be there together. And we wanted them to really get to take full advantage of the event that we had put together. We used a live thermometer that was on a screen the entire event. And then we blew it up on massive screens for key points in the event. So people could always see the difference that they were making, our progress towards the goal, how they're immediately making a difference. And it also helped us from a staff perspective throughout the room. We had, almost 400 people there. Someone come and say, oh, how are we doing? Or, ask a question. You can see that screen from anywhere in the room and have a real-time example and a real-time answer. So I found that was really great at this event. And then also our branding was completely customized on the screen itself. So we just rebranded as an organization. That was really important to me. So it felt like us. We used our own imagery. We used our brand colors. And I think that that was a great component of the event. So as we have been talking about kind of the entire time on this webinar, so everything we're talking about is relationships that you have with people who care about your mission. And so showing your gratitude before, during, and after the event is essential. So you're trying to communicate to people how what they've done, how just being at that event or being involved with you some way is helping us together accomplish our mission. So we were really successful this event. We surpassed our goals. We had huge growth over the past year. And we used significantly more digital tools than we had in years past. And I think that this really contributed to our success. So rounding it out, so top tips for digital fundraising success, these are kind of across the board. So being aware of your audience. So what kinds of technology are people comfortable with and what will they need help using? There is just, in my opinion, nothing worse than selecting something that your audience is not naturally engaged in, familiar with using, and it will just set you up to kind of have a disconnect. That being said, you can continue to try to move people in a certain direction. So for example, at our event, we had a donation station. We could manually process gifts for people because that's what they're used to. We engaged the text to give feature so people could use one of those keywords. They could just text in their donation, which was kind of a step forward. So some people used it and some people didn't at all. And then we had a leaderboard, which we hadn't had before, and that was something people were just super responsive to, and we'll definitely continue to use again. So again, know your campaign style and needs. If you were talking about events, if you have a super loud event, texts are helpful. If your donors really would like your help, make sure that you have enough staff and they understand what's going on and can facilitate those processes. So don't be afraid to show off your brand. And this is kind of one of my most important things is customizing every touch point across all of your digital strategies and engagement. Just allows you to connect to people in a more authentic way. So you just want to think about that when you're choosing your platforms. Stay focused on your goals. What is the purpose of each digital activity? What are you looking to achieve? Set your goals ahead of time and then think about how your digital presence is going to help you reach those goals. And then make it about the donor again and again. Technology is a huge help, but the focus should be donor-centric, and everything you do should help build or enrich your relationships with real people. And then strategize around opportunities. So digital activities are enriching everything you're doing with your relationships. You will build new relationships with diverse audiences. So think about key times during the year in your fundraising. What are the opportunities? And are you really taking advantage of them?
Welcome, Zanika. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I hope everybody can hear me well. Today, I want to talk a lot about video storytelling. Today, it's really all about videos, I can't stress this enough. The average consumer with an internet connection watches roughly 206 videos per month, and a recent study just discovered that when video and text content were placed side by side on a web page, 8 out of 10 viewers started watching the video instead of reading the text, which ultimately conveyed the same message. And, you might ask why. It's kind of science, right? And it's intuitive for us. Videos are processed much quicker by the brain. When we read something, we have to be involved in processing the information. But when we watch a video, we become immersed in it, and we create an emphatic connection with the screen. Video is much easier for us to become emotionally attached. And so when it comes to the nonprofit world, video is really critical in getting your supporters to feel and connect with what you're doing. So let's talk about video for a minute. A lot of nonprofits, a lot of my clients included, steer away from video because they think, it entails a big overhead or production cost, or they don't think they have time to do it. And these assumptions are wrong. we've found that raw video footage taken from a smartphone is more than sufficient to get viewers to engage with you. And that's really because viewers are already receiving a high volume of content this way. You know, between Facebook Live and Snapchat and Instagram, we're already viewing content every day in a low-budget, highly personalized format. So in short, you really won't be judged for, not having a high-production video on your website or social media. And on that point, too, it's always beneficial to break a video up into small kind of snackable chunks. So say you record, a 5-minute video and then cut that down into 30-minute snippets. You can send that video out in 30-minute sections to different groups at different times. And really, you can promote live video content whenever applicable. There's tons of examples here. So if your organization is building a new classroom, you can go live on Instagram or Snapchat to show the construction and the progress you're making. Or if you're having a run walk, you can have someone on staff film from the finish line as runners come in. If you're rescuing animals off the street, you can show the process. If you have guest speakers at an event, you can go live and let the supporters see the talk that they're giving. So really, the more examples that you can think of, and the more creatively that you can think about how to tell your story, these are all opportunities for you to actually show your donors what you're doing. So how do we make the giving experience part of this story? This is something that I think all organizations grapple with, but really it can be a lot more intuitive than how we think about it. I think, oftentimes organizations want to play it safe. They want to be very kind to their donors. They don't want to do anything that kind of disrupts the system. But I actually encourage a lot of my clients to do, to go through the exercise of visualizing what is the donor experience like and how can you insert the donor into the story of the cause so that they really feel like they're part of it. So, of course, there are some basic things you want to do there. You want to have a nice customized donation form that's very easy to use. But I want to actually share an example of an organization that I worked with recently to kind of convey how you can create this storytelling workflow. So I worked with an organization recently that wanted to raise $35,000 to launch a youth program for kids after school. They started the campaign by sharing a video. I think it was about 45 seconds. And it essentially showed some of the issues that youth in their community were facing. So things like dropping out of school, gang violence, substance abuse, and so on. And the video ended with a statement that said, "Learn how you can help," and it offered a link. This link took them to a mobile cause donation form where there was another brief video from the ED, essentially introducing himself, explaining why he was so passionate about this cause. And at the end of the 25-second or so video, he encouraged people to donate. Well, now the nice thing is that people are already on your donation page because the form or the video is embedded right on the donation page. And now they're also emotionally compelled to give because not only have you problematized a real issue facing people, you've offered a solution. So next, they provided impact metrics. And so just a brief definition of this, impact metrics are really tangible outcomes or products or results that different donation amounts yield. So, for example, they had things like, $500 will support the ability of us to provide guest speakers for these students and career support. $100 will pay for the curriculum of 3 students. $25 will provide transport and food for 1 student after school, and so on. So they attached a specific impact metric to each level of giving, which is also important so that small and large donors alike can feel equally connected to a specific element of the cause, irrespective of their individual gift size. So not only do impact metrics help people feel more connected because now they feel like they're, actually giving something as opposed to just a monetary amount, it actually also incentivizes people to give more. And how does this occur? Well, if you think about it, if I see a donation that I can make and $25 pays for the transportation of 1 student, but I see that $100 might pay for the curriculum of 3, I'm now given a tangible way to see my dollar stretch to benefit more people. So there's kind of a utilitarian perspective at play here. the best chance that you'll have to increase a person's level of giving once they're already on the donation page is to give them these impact metrics and things that they can relate to. So to finish off the example of my client, once supporters made their donation, they were sent to a thank you page that I just had a brief thank you video, about 10 seconds from the executive director. And most importantly, a month later when the campaign ended, they had reached more than their goal, and they actually sent out little videos based on each person's level of giving. So for the people that gave gifts of $25, they sent a little video clip of the kids hopping on the bus and showing that their gift went towards transportation. For the ones who gave money to support guest speakers, they sent them clips that were personalized to the guest speakers speaking to the kids and really giving the donor a real connection that they contributed to that specific element of the cause. So I think this example highlights what is meant by a storytelling workflow. It's the process of giving that's wrapped beautifully into the overall story and mission of the organization and really connecting each individual to it. Text message keywords for everything. This is really about capitalizing on in-person opportunities and being your own brand ambassador. So of course, this pertains to, traditional fundraising events such as what Christina had mentioned. You can use text to donate keywords at live events and create a fun, interactive experience for people to give. But you can also extend the keyword element to sort of non-traditional fundraising opportunities. And I'll give you another example. So say that, there's an organization hosting a food drive outside of a local grocer or something. And then you have people that are kind of just going in and out of the grocery store. They're carrying on about their day. They're not really involved in the food drive, but they might wander by to see what you guys are up to. A lot of organizations in this instance might have, a pamphlet or a flyer set up at a little station that lets people, come and grab one and take off so that they can learn more about the organization. Well, the problem with this approach is that the walker-by is collecting information about your organization, but you aren't collecting information about them. So you're essentially losing out on an opportunity to potentially convert an interested person into a donor. So let's go back to that same example and imagine that instead of having pamphlets or flyers that you're handing out at your event, you have a texting keyword available. Somebody that comes by, they might ask you what you're up to, and you can say, we're doing a food drive. If you want to learn more information, you can just text food to 41444. And then at their convenience, they can text in, they can receive a link on their phone that you can essentially guide them to wherever you want them to go. You can take them to a page that, provides more information about your organization and is also capturing data from them. Maybe it's just their name and email, but at least in that case, you're opening a window of communication to increase your chances of converting them to a donor in the future. Or if people are compelled enough on the spot, they can make a donation right then and there. So maybe they're passionate about the food drive that you're putting on, but they don't have food to donate. They can text food to 41444 and make a donation right to you then and there. Of course, it will take them to a mobile-optimized page. You're gaining their information, and you're creating a window of opportunity to cultivate a donor in a more long-term manner. So rules for developing digital communication strategies. I can't emphasize this enough. Segment your audiences. So, of course, in order to communicate effectively, you have to know who you're communicating with. And a lot of nonprofits don't even get this far. They might have thousands of emails in their database, and they'll send an e-blast to every person that's effectively conveying the same information in the same style, yet the email is going to people of all different ages, lifestyles, level of engagement with the organization. And so, despite best intentions, this is not the most effective way to communicate with all of the varying constituents in your donor base. So there are all kinds of ways that you can segment your donor base to reach different audiences, and there really isn't an exact right or wrong way to do this. The best advice I can give here is to think to yourself, who am I communicating with, and what is the most effective way to communicate with them? So you can start by breaking your database up into maybe, say, age groups. So maybe you have one that's for ages between 18 and 30, and then you safely assume that you can communicate with these people more via text than maybe, say, your 50-plus group. Maybe you can also address them in a less formal tone. Maybe you don't send them as many direct mail pieces. Maybe you segment your database according to donor life cycle. So how long has this person been a donor? And communicate with them in a way that shows that you know that they've been connected to your organization for a long time so that they feel special and appreciated. So maybe you break your list up into, people who you've had in your database for 10 plus years, and maybe they give small, regular gifts each year. Address them in a way that they feel that you value their contributions. And, for new contacts in your database, maybe you put them into a whole separate communication strategy where you emphasize storytelling and you sort of bring them up to speed on not only what your organization has been doing since before they became aware of it, but what direction you're heading in and how they can be a part of your future. And so once you have your segment about the channels that you're engaging with them through, so, email, social media, text, of course, maybe you decide it's better to text certain constituents more than others. Don't be afraid to ask your constituents how they want to be communicated with. And, of course, you want to follow their preferences so that you're communicating with them in a way that they find most valuable. Of course, you never want to send a message just for the sake of sending one, but on the reverse, don't stay quiet when you have important updates to share. You want to keep the spirit of storytelling alive in your cause and share relevant video updates whenever possible. Digital marketing services. I am part of the digital marketing team here at MobileCause. We pretty much live and breathe digital fundraising and engagement. We're very passionate about it, and our team offers white glove service to nonprofit clients to establish a fundraising campaign that fully integrates digital strategy across all devices to engage donors and boost fundraising. Our team supports nonprofit planning efforts by creating a campaign that's set up with best practices to drive maximum results. And on the slide, there are a list of different packages available that we offer.
Terrific. Thanks, Annika. And thanks, everybody, for sticking with us. It's about the top of the hour, but we are going to get into Q&A. So first question to you, Larry. What do you think is, from your experience, what's the best way for a nonprofit to enhance their digital skills, if they have a small team? Any thoughts? How do you get started with that?
Well, let's go back to fundraising planning. Presumably, this is an initiative in your fundraising plan, and if it is, you've carved out some time and you've got some objectives, and that would be the first place to begin before you ever do anything. It needs to be like anything else. If you want to do it, it has to be a commitment, has to be a priority. Certainly, it's very important to get started in this way because what we're really going through is a complete transformation of the way people communicate. That's what's really happening. 100 years ago, it went from letter writing to the telephone. And then 50 years ago, the telephone to video and two-way video. So with each one of these shifts, there was a need to relearn skills. Basic human nature hasn't changed. But if you're going to use these skills, if you're going to reach people, it has to be something you incorporate in your fundraising plan. You can't do this sort of thing on the fly. And as to where to start, the place to start, ironically, probably isn't very digital at all, and that would be make sure that your addressable base, your communication base, is absolutely accurate as much as can be with telephone, email, and other social media channels. I mean, that's if you've got all these great tools and great plans, and your mailing list is really corrupt, well, where does that get you? So that's what I would do.
Oh, terrific. To you, Annika, what are your thoughts about dealing with older donors, and what's sort of been your experience in working with MobileCause customers and who have an older donor base?
Sure, it's definitely something that comes up a lot in conversations with different clients. But interestingly, we've found that older demographics are not resistant to tech; they're just slower to become accustomed to it and to become keen to connect with you like that. So, you might have an event with a text to donate function, and you might have a person, say 65, who's writing you a check and handing it in, and that's how they're happy connecting. But then the next time you run that same event or a different event, they might be more inclined to then text in to donate because now they've seen it once, they know it's cool, they can observe the functionality, and they know that it's actually easy to use, so then they'll go for it. And again, I think just continuously asking your donors how best they like to be communicated with will speak to this point. So you still might have them say that they prefer direct mail, but that's not to the exclusion of other elements as well. It just might not be the most effective mechanism for them. So it definitely doesn't mean, don't do more tech-savvy elements with your older demographics. It just means do those as a supplement to the traditional means in which you're normally communicating with them.
So what are your thoughts, Christina, on this topic? Yeah, because I know that,
Sure.
you have some good thoughts about it. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and I think Larry really touched on this nicely as well, is it really goes back to sort of basic fundraising principles and the question of, are you trying to create a strategy, a digital strategy first and then trying to fit it to your donors, or are you looking at who your donors and your audience are and then finding the appropriate strategy for them? So naturally, everything we're doing in this day and age is shifting to include more and more digital, but I'm just a firm believer in that you can't just sort of say, oh, well, we're doing everything digitally now because of millennials or young people and they are future donors, and sort of exclude the people that have been your donors, are your major donors, and how they are communicating with you. So I really like to say that everything you do digitally should be supplementing what you're doing, but it shouldn't be replacing the other methods of communication and relationship building with people. So if you're trying to replace everything you're doing with digital tools, but 90% of your donor base is aging or really says they prefer snail mail or wants to meet with you face-to-face, you probably need to rethink that choice. So just making sure that you're putting the people that care about your mission and are supporting it first versus the tools first.
Yes. Now, back to you, Larry, and I know you've, with all the years' experience, you've, had a lot of opportunity to manage people, and, how do you find it best to sort of, identify the right team members to add to your team and then prioritize, maybe you just have a few resources. How do you best prioritize, what everyone should be doing? Because feels like there's so much to be done, and, most organizations have not enough people or resources to get everything done. What are your thoughts on how do you set priorities?
Well, the first thing that I look at, there's never enough resource. I mean, and I've led small organizations, I've led large ones, and large or small, you still never have enough. And so there's always a need to make the most with what you have. And what I've always done is I have worked very hard to look first at not just the skill base of someone, but more importantly, I'm looking at the work habits, I'm looking at the commitment, at the willingness to learn new things, the willingness to do more than what was precisely asked, a team spirit, high integrity. These are the things I really focus on. And I can train someone to do some of the specifics that have to be done if I have these characteristics. Whereas if I have someone with great credentials that doesn't have the work ethic or doesn't have the integrity or is always saying, well, that's not my job, well, what does that get me? And so I would focus on those intangibles when I'm looking to obviously you want people who are confident. When it comes to digital in my own business, I look for a person who's young. I have a wonderful, wonderful woman that works with me, and she's my bellwether for these things. For instance, the whole issue of mobile adaptation. Everything that we do here at the 8 Principles mobily adapts, and that is where everything is headed. Even older people are using their telephones more than laptops and computers. And so I said, well, Danielle, so tell me, what do you do when you see a website that doesn't mobily adapt? And her response, I keep looking. And so that there again, you need someone who's coming from that direction. And so she's been is quite an asset to me on that level. But that's, this is kind of off the subject of the question, but I think mobile adaptation is something that nonprofits are really way behind the curve on. And it's something that needs some addressing. And it's not that difficult. It just requires using the right platforms.
Fantastic. Well, and ideally, that's of course where mobile cause comes into play. And so here's on a very tactical note, back to you, Zanika. So obviously, that's what mobile cause is all about: is helping nonprofits get to mobile, because it is a dominant platform where even older generations are using their mobile devices to do all kinds of things. But so on a very tactical question, it was submitted that some of their potential donors enter a name on a mobile cause form, right? But refuse to maybe finalize their info, input, and with that, of course, the donation. Any pointers to kind of coach them, those donors through the process, when we're not present with them? What strategies do you have around that?
Sure. So a lot of it goes back to what I was talking about on my second slide. So it's really inserting the donor or the average person, into the story. So on the one end, so from a tactical perspective, content. As a nonprofit, you need content that is compelling to different demographics, which is not easy to achieve, but it's absolutely possible. And then in terms of warming people up, essentially, if they don't put in their, if they don't donate immediately, it's about developing a longer term plan with people that are interested in your organization. So, we don't normally recommend for people to solicit donations when they first start communicating with the donors, whether it be via mobile or other platforms. We encourage them to just ask for simple information. What's your name? How did you hear about this? What types of information would you like to learn more about? And start there. And then, gradually, that's helpful information for you to start building a relationship with them in a way that person appreciates. And then you can start, going after donations. And so Mobile Cause as a system supports all varieties of donors and nonprofits by kind of working through the strategy of helping nonprofits target and segment different demographics and then cater the technical solution to best fit that given demographic.
Great stuff. And we have time just for one more question, and I'll throw it back to Christina. Sort of on that note, have you sort of designed or thought through sort of the donor journey, if you will, Christina, from, building awareness to building, engaging with them, building a relationship, like as Zanika just suggested, right? Upon first connection with a potential donor, you don't immediately ask them for money, right? Like, how have you kind of approached that sort of donor journey, if you will?
Sure. So I think it's, similar in a digital setting as it would to be kind of your overall strategy, in that they should kind of be cohesive, but it's how you would get to know any person. So asking a lot of questions, again, that's kind of a donor-centric principle, is not just talking about yourself. And I think a lot of organizations, when they meet someone, are really excited to tell that person all about the organization and how awesome it is and why you should support it. But then you're not really learning about the donor or sort of building a relationship or a rapport with them. So I would say, as Zanika said, asking questions, learning what's important to them. Why are they here in the first place? Why did they like your post or come to your event or sign up for your email newsletter? Thinking about the stages of, what are some ways that you can get involved with them, whether it's, meeting for coffee or inviting them to come to a volunteer thing, and just kind of building slowly based on it has to be all based on their interests, on their time, and how they prefer to engage with you. And sometimes, it is digital. They are busy, they work, and commute far away. They want you to send something by email. It's just kind of getting to know the personality of the people that are part of your organization, and the natural patterns throughout the year. So there are times throughout the calendar year where there are certain events, whether it's, I always think of Giving Tuesday or kind of end-of-year fundraising, that are sort of natural touch points, but then looking at other opportunities throughout the year to continue that relationship. Don't just leave it to, Q4, I haven't talked to this person in a year, but I'm going to send them the ask letter. Think about how you're communicating constantly, and is your digital supporting that, because it is sort of generating those touch points and communicating a presence that you would like them to feel. But what are the other ways that you're really stewarding your relationship with that person?
Fantastic insight. So again, I want to thank everybody for their time today and for sticking around a little extra with us. And I want to thank our terrific speakers. I want to encourage all of you to, reach out and engage with them. Again, Larry Johnson, I'm the author and founder of the 8 Principles. I'd encourage everyone to visit Larry's site. He's got a lot of terrific resources, as he mentioned, so I'd encourage all of you to engage with that. Of course, I'd encourage all of you to follow what Food Rescue is doing, support their cause. Obviously they're a great example of, how to use some of these digital tools for donor engagement. And of course, I encourage all of you to engage with us at Mobile Cause and get in contact with Zanika Covington. You can, of course, reach out to us directly by visiting mobilecause.com/free-consultation. And we're dropping some links into the chat, so you can, of course, get to Larry's website at the8principles.com, as well as foodrescue.us. But please do feel free to reach out to Mobile Cause. We're here available to help you, accomplish your goals. So feel free to call us at 888-661-8804. And visit us, as I mentioned, at mobilecause.com/free-consultation. Do be on the lookout. We will be sending you, as I mentioned, the full recorded version of this webinar. It'll be complete with good audio and slides, so you can recap anything and share with a colleague or two. So again, with that, I want to thank everyone again for their time today. Have a great day.